This video is all about the pros and cons of commercial real estate. So what's up everybody, my name is Henry Eisenstein. If you don't know who I am, I've been a part of over $400 million worth of real estate transactions and I'm only 28 years old. And again, in this video, we're talking about all the pros and cons of commercial real estate as a realtor. So the first thing I want to talk about is the cons. Why commercial real estate honestly isn't that fun sometimes. When it comes to commercial real estate, the biggest con of it is that most times that the transactions are way longer than residential deals. An average commercial deal can take anywhere between 90 days and 6 months. And don't get me wrong, have I closed deals in 30 days in the commercial world? Of course. However, a large majority of real estate transactions when it comes to the commercial world is just a lot longer of a process. So big con, they take a lot longer to close, which means that your commission check is going to be sitting on an attorney's desk essentially for quite some time. Con number two is that they're a little bit more in depth when it comes to the preparation of the sale. Again, if you're working with a seller and you're looking to list the property for sale, there's going to be a lot of underwriting and information like the fact finding phase, right? Like that's going to be a lot of information they're going to have to work through before you can just put the property on the market. When it comes to residential deals, you can just snap some quick photos, walk around and talk about the flooring and the bedroom and bathroom count, and you can essentially just put it on the market. When it comes to a commercial piece of real estate, if you do not understand the fundamentals behind it, which is the financials and the uses for that property, it will cause a lot more, challenges later down the road. Con number three is you need a more specialized knowledge base when it comes to commercial real estate. When you're in residential, honestly, I sell a lot of residential homes, and I'm going to be honest with you, beginning of my career, still selling dozens of homes every single year, I was not that great of an agent. You don't need to have that great of an understanding of how real estate works, especially in Jersey, because a lot of the attorneys take care of a large majority of transactions. Like, you don't have to have a crazy knowledge base to sell a lot of real estate. But when it comes to commercial, you need to have a very good understanding of the fundamentals behind a transaction, because there's so many moving parts, especially just even with the preparation, like we mentioned before, understanding how financials work so that you can evaluate a property. When it comes to commercial, it is a very different valuation process than it is residential. On residential, you can almost go on Zillow, just listen for the Zillow's estimate price, and you're not going to be super far off, right? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you that's how you comp properties, but I'm saying even if you just wanted to do that, you probably wouldn't be too far off. When it comes to commercial real estate, there's not just some wing it type of way. You have to understand how to evaluate a piece of commercial real estate, way different of a knowledge basis than it is in residential. And on top of that, you still need to understand how to read the facts. Like when you're underwriting a deal, and not only on the financials, but also when it comes to the zoning and uses of a commercial piece of property, you have to understand how that all works. Because if you don't understand development, how much it will actually cost to then bring it into possibly that new use, you're not going to price it right. So it's a very different understanding when it comes to the fundamental valuation process than it is real estate in the residential world. And lastly, a quick con when it comes to commercial real estate, it is a little bit more difficult to get the actual contact information of the owner because most commercial pieces of property are held in LLCs. When it comes to residential properties, they're typically held in people's actual names. So there's a lot more simpler of a process in finding that contact information when you're trying to reach out and prospect these individuals. It is a lot longer of a process to try to find contact information when someone's locked up in an LLC on a piece of property. So again, those are the four cons. Let's dive into those pros. The very first pro, I'm sure you guys figured this one out. There's probably a lot more money to be made in the commercial world than there is the residential world. There's just a lot more expensive properties when it comes to commercial real estate than there is residential. So pro number one, there's a lot more money to be made if you understand how the process works when it comes to commercial real estate. Pro number two, less emotion. When it comes to commercial real estate, typically it's a less emotional of a transaction. There's a lot more emotional ties when it comes to selling a family home that's been in the family for like 150 years. When it comes to commercial properties, it's very, very different. Most of the time, it's for financial reasons only, right? Most of the time, the purchases and the sales are typically mostly done between investors, so there's not really emotions involved here so much. It's more of just black and white. How much money am I making? How much money am I investing? And what's my return? It's going to be a little bit less emotional than residential real estate. Pro number three, the competition. When it comes to the competition in the commercial world, I don't want to say there's less competition because there's a gajillion real estate agents everywhere, but there's less of a competition when it comes to a specific skill set. There is millions of individuals who hold a real estate license. A far less majority of those individuals work in the commercial world than they do the residential world. Just in general, there's gonna be a lot less competition just from people who are actually licensed to do, and focused on that type of asset class. That's just number one. Part two of it when it comes to competition is that in the commercial world, there is a far less majority of individuals who are actually genuinely prospecting the same people. Let me explain here. In the residential world, it is too easy to get the contact information like we've talked about. You can go on Mojo Dialer and pay for the expireds list, right? You can go on there and you can just pay for an expired list and you can start calling the list right away. When it comes to the commercial world, in the properties that are held in LLCs, if you do not understand the process behind it, it's much more difficult to get the actual real contact information. Therefore, there's less people prospecting those types of individuals when it comes to over-the-phone sales. Yes, you can still send out the postcards and all that other crap. Not saying that it doesn't work, but it's just a lot less likely. But that's why I'm saying, because there's a lot less competition, if you know how to play the game and get good contact information, you can far outpace the people in the industry when it comes to commercial real estate than you can in the residential world. Pro number 4, everything's a lot more flexible in the commercial world when it comes to commissions. So let me explain this. In the residential world, it's like everyone does the same thing every single time, right? If you have a commercial piece of real estate, there's a little bit more flexibility because a large majority of the deals are done off market. And a large majority of the deals are even done with this, it's like double lending a lot more deals, right? It's done in-house a large majority of the time. So that being said, you have much more of an opportunity to get larger commissions, not just higher price points and making more in general, but the reason why you will typically make more in the commercial world is because you're also going to double end most deals. Because if you have a buyer base that like I do, right? I have a lot of investors that I do a lot of business with, and my team and I are constantly prospecting for new properties to sell them. On average, what'll happen is I'm going to double end that deal, because if I call a seller that matches the criteria of one of my buyers, I don't even need to list the property for sale. I could just put it into contract right away, and I can easily get a 4, 5, or 6% commission every single time I do that, and it's super commonplace for me to do so. So again, if you're looking for a massive amount of commissions in a much more higher price point, this is why I love commercials so much. And the next pro is there is more experienced clientele and realtors in this business, right? When it comes to the commercial world, people typically happen to be more experienced. Like we talked about, you need to have a different knowledge basis to be in this business. So a large majority of realtors are either on a team or very experienced. You're not going to find someone who's a realtor by themselves, not on a team, who's just trying to wing it. It's very rare in the commercial world to see that, much more common in the residential world. And your clientele is very, very seasoned a large majority of the time. Most of the time, investors buy more than one property. Right? It's very, very commonplace to see one investor who owns multiple properties, and if they're buying another property, it's like, imagine every single residential client you're working with owned 7 homes. I mean, if that was the case, it would be a lot more understanding, that they would probably understand the process a lot more, and they don't have to, you don't have to handhold every single one of those clients. Like, yeah, I mean, I buy a property every single year, right? Like, if you had that type of residential buyer or residential seller, it's gonna be a lot simpler of a transaction, because they're not gonna have that many questions. You understand my point here? When you're dealing with somebody who is more experienced as a clientele and more experienced realtors, it's much simpler to get a deal done, because everyone in the deal very experienced and knows how to get a deal done. Other than that, guys, listen, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. When it comes to commercial and residential, I want you to know it is imperative to understand that you can make a lot of money in both industries, but I would tell you right now, if you have not tried the other one, stop throwing money out the door. As somebody who's a dynamic realtor, so I sell every type of commercial and residential real estate, it's very important to not leave money at the table. Because I know a lot of people in the residential world who say that they don't do any commercial and they won't even refer it and get a commission on it. I know people who've really just said, here, just take the lead, it's okay, I don't even want a referral.
Are you kidding me?
Right, same thing from the commercial world to the residential world. I don't really deal with this, you can take it. Guys, learn how to sell the property. It's not that difficult, and if you have assistants who help you with the properties anyways, who handle all the paperwork, there's no difference. It's the same thing. Anyways, learn how to become a dynamic realtor. I hope this content is really helping you guys out. If you have any questions, make sure you leave it in the comment section down below. We answer every single question, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.